Hello friends, my name is Emily, I'm the bi, and these are not books off of my bookshelf. So before I get started with today's video, I want to say that down in the description box below, you will find links to petitions you can still sign, places you can still donate to that still need your money and support, and links to resources that you can still read to further your education on anti-racism. So today my video is going to be me tier ranking fanfic tropes. Cindy and Chanelle, both of whom I adore, and I will link both their channels and their videos down below in the description box. While I liked both of those videos quite a bit, I do feel like both of them kind of lost the fanfiction element of tier ranking fanfic tropes. So I wanted to do this because of that, first of all, and second of all, it just seems like a lot of fun, and I want to talk through all of the things. So I decided that instead of doing the kind of do you like it, do you not like it, what level of it do you like, etc., I would do 4 of my favorite ships and kind of decide which of the tropes I liked the best for which couple, if that makes sense. Okay, so here is the view of the screen. The 4 couples that I picked for this, I recognize they are all male-male romance. Obviously I have an OT3 in there, and you know, it still has 2 men in the relationship, and like that's part of the appeal of the relationship as well, which I will get into probably. But I just want to say that as a queer woman, I think that a lot of queer women, especially queer women my age who got into fandom in the way that I got into fandom, tend to ship male-male romance or male-male pairings because the media that we were consuming, especially the type of media that I'm like putting up here, which is a lot of speculative fiction, tended to have a lot of underdeveloped female characters, and the male characters who actually had relationships with people were the ones who were developed. And so as someone who wanted queer content, and you know, I wanted very bisexual content, that tended to be the best avenue for getting well-developed queer content because those were the only characters who were particularly developed. That's not a great thing in general, obviously, and like I don't know what straight women are doing, but that is, at least for me as a queer person, the reason why I was so drawn to male-male romance in fanfiction, is because they were the ones who were developed, and because they were the ones who were developed, they were the ones who were able to be written into fanfiction, into this kind of fictionalized relationship that was queer, which is what I wanted. The 4 pairings that I'm going to put all of these tropes into are Steve and Bucky from Marvel, Kirk and McCoy from Star Trek, the original series, Stiles and Derek from Teen Wolf on MTV, and Steve, Nancy, and Jonathan, who is the only OT3 that I have on this list, from Stranger Things. I also have a no thanks category because there's some shit on here that I just don't wanna fucking read. Ever. Especially not in these 4. So I thought we would just go ahead and get started. I'm just gonna go down the list. These are in alphabetical order. Basically, there are some things that I think would fit very well and that I like in all 4 of these pairings, but I'm going to pick which thing makes me the happiest, like which pairing seeing this trope in makes me the happiest. So let's just go ahead and get started. So first up we have ABO, which is the alpha, beta, omega thing. I'm not super into this trope as a whole, but I will say, however, one of the only fandoms that I've ever read and quite enjoyed ABO fanfic in is Teen Wolf, which makes sense because it already exists as part of the kind of vibe of the show. I'm very into it. I like pack fanfic with Stiles and Derek, especially if it's set during certain seasons where I feel like the pack dynamic was better done. The show is messy, but I still love it. It took up a large chunk of my life. Amnesia fic. So I feel like this is also kind of obvious, which is Steve and Bucky. Hello. This is sort of an actual thing that happens within the actual content of the canon of Marvel, is that, especially in the films, is that Bucky doesn't remember who Steve is at first, and like, boy howdy did fanfic authors run with it, and does it break my heart every single time? You bet your fucking ass it does. Oh, it's so good. So the next one is Angst. I love Angst. It is one of my favorite tropey things. I mean, I guess it is tropey, but also like a big part of storytelling. I think my favorite of these to have angst is probably Steve and Bucky, because there's so much that you can have with Steve and Bucky fanfic with angst, because whether it's set in the past, pre or post Steve getting the serum, like, ooh, you got angst, so much angst. There's a lot of like cultural stuff that's going on at the time period, and ooh, all of that. And then you also have the angst of what happened to Steve and Bucky, and like Bucky going missing and Steve going into the ice, and like Steve waking up without him, and like ooh, so many things. And then you can just have like modern day angst stuff. It's very good. And I feel like Stucky fanfic authors just like maybe do it the best. So arranged marriage. I don't love this trope as a whole in fanfiction. I think a lot of people haven't quite figured out how to inject it into fanfiction particularly well, but I will say I don't hate it. I will read fanfics with it. It just needs to be done well. I will also say that of these four, the one that I think I've read arranged marriage or like that kind of vibe fanfics for are Styles and Derek. AU, obviously, but kind of taking in the history and like kind of creating the new mythology of like the werewolf stuff in Teen Wolf really works for me, especially when it's done very well, which like Steric authors can do so well, because I love Teen Wolf, but that show is not great, and didn't do a lot of things and didn't let the show be the show or create a lot of mythology that the show then remembered existing at all, which was extremely frustrating as a viewer. And so I feel like the Teen Wolf fanfic community really kind of created a lot of very good world building stuff. There's some stuff where like I'm like, damn, is that canon or was that fanon? Baby fix. Get the fuck out of here. I don't need that. Where's the other one? There's another one in here that pregnancy fic. I'm not into that. I'm literally not into that in any context, and I don't really like it in fiction either as a whole, fan or non. So no thanks. Sharing a bed. Okay, so this is great in literally every universe. Thank you. Sharing a bed is one of the best tropes. However, I would say that actually Styles and Derek sharing a bed is probably my favorite. Although God, Stucky is really good because like I think there's maybe, see, this is the is it canon or fanon thing where I'm like, is it canon that Steve and Bucky only had one bed in the apartment that they lived in? Also, is it even canon that they lived in the same apartment? I think so. But Styles and Derek having to share a bed is great because Styles and Derek as a couple are very good because Styles is very energetic and enthusiastic and Derek is a grump. And so when they have to share a bed, hallelujah. Like, praise be. This is beautiful writing. Okay, next up is Bang or Die. So I read this in, I think probably Kirk McCoy, although probably more in Kirk Spock fanfic, because I do like that couple, but Kirk and McCoy kind of became my favorite couple in Star Trek as a whole because of the new movies, which I think is kind of funny. Because I really like Spock and Uhura as a couple, and I didn't like, and this is a common theme for me, I didn't like how people who were shipping Kirk and Spock from the new universe were kind of shoving Uhura aside, which is like a very common thing, especially in like the 2000s in terms of writing fanfic where a girlfriend or a wife or a partner of any kind who is a woman exists in what would eventually in fandom be a male-male romance. And so I kind of ended up like pivoting to Kirk and McCoy, and then I read a couple of fanfics that like I was like, oh man. And so here I am. I am McKirk trash, and that's just where I am. So I've definitely read some like Star Trek Bang or Die, but I will say that I think Styles and Derek do it more, and I think it has a lot to do with the werewolf vibe, which like, again, I'm not into the ABO or like territory thing, except for the fact that it's canon in this show because of the show, because it's about werewolves. I don't like it in other things, and I don't like it as like an alternate universe thing. But ooh, it works really well for me in Teen Wolf. So, Bang or Die, Steric is good. Body swap. Okay, so I don't know that I've read a lot of body swap fanfic, to be completely honest, but I would say that I have read a fair amount of Kirk McCoy. And then the other question is it body swap between the couple or like some sort of body swap within the universe? At which point I would 100% say McKirk. There is a Mirrorverse fanfic that is very long and has lots of different things happening in it that has a very good, like, I think couple of body swap. Also, oh my god, I didn't even think about it. I mean, it's not quite body swap, but the kind of universe swap that exists in Star Trek because of Mirrorverse. Mirrorverse is a holy grail of life. And yeah, body swap goes to Star Trek. Goes specifically to McCoy and Kirk. Okay, so Coffee Shop AU. If I had had Les Mis, E and R on this list, which I thought about putting, but that would mean having to pronounce a bunch of French words, as Megan said, and I just cannot do that, so I didn't. That couple, E and R from Les Mis, has one of the best coffee shop AUs ever. It also has a lot of coffee shop AUs, and they're good. God, I love a coffee shop AU, but I don't know that any of these really have, I mean, that Les Mis one I just think about forever, but probably Steve and Bucky, because you have Steve, who is like an artist in canon, and he's going into a coffee shop, and you have Bucky as the barista, and like Steve is just always there. Like, oh, is good. Is very good. Okay, so the next one is College AU. Man, okay. Actually, my favorite, well, oh god, I was gonna say my favorite is the Stranger Things kids, but actually, which it is, I do have a very favorite college AU of the Stranger Things OT3 that I just adore. But some of my favorite college AU fics are Styles and Derek. There are so many. Oh my god. Because you have like just standard college AUs, but then you also have college AUs with a twist where like crack fic I'm not into. Just to move it quite along. It's never been my jam. Crossover. Okay, so this one is hard because I like crossover sometimes. It depends on what you're crossing it over with. The idea, god, sorry, I just thought about the fact that I was on Tumblr in all of the fandoms when the Doctor Who Supernatural, god, what was the other one? Oh, Sherlock one. I don't think I was as big into Sherlock at the time when that like weird big crossover thing was happening. Anyway, oh, I just thought about that. That's a bad one because that doesn't make any fucking sense. I like crossover. This is stupid, but and I don't know that I've ever actually read any crossover fic within the Stranger Things universe, but it would make sense, and depending on how it was written, actually I may have, because this is who I am. Depending on how it was written, I could see and feasibly enjoy, and again, I think I maybe have, Supernatural Stranger Things crossover. I think it would make sense. I could be into it. It really depends. Why am I invoking Supernatural on this episode of my channel? Oh, god, I could talk about Supernatural forever, though. Believe me. You're very lucky I didn't fucking throw Supernatural in here. Anyway, Dark Fic is going to fucking McKirk. Because, say it with me now, Mirrorverse. There is some fucked up shit going on in there. And I love it a lot. I don't know how to do anything with that. All right, major character death. I mean, I hate it, but like, you can do it in Steve Bucky and like rip my fucking heart out, you know? So I guess I'm gonna throw it in there. Canon divergence. I would say my favorite canon divergence. So here's the thing. So you have canon divergence that's like, this could feasibly happen, or canon divergence that's like, they did this completely wrong thing, so I'm gonna go over here and fix it. That's what I'm thinking of, because there's a lot of Stucky fanfics that, like, could feasibly happen within the Marvel universe minus the relationship, because they would never do that because they hate me. Or that could have happened if Avengers 2 hadn't done whatever the fuck they were doing. And I love those. And I do think that they count as canon divergence. Teen Wolf is so bad and so kind of loosey-goosey on its own canon, which, like, within the show, which, let me tell you, is one of the most frustrating things as a fan of something to witness. And I think that the fanfic authors in the Teen Wolf community really did a very truly good job of rewriting and fixing a lot of things that just didn't work or were never mentioned again or never brought up again in any way at all. Like, what the fuck? And so I'm gonna give canon divergence to Steric because that shit is masterful. Next up, we got enemies to lovers. And let me tell you what. There are two things. I know which one it's gonna go in. It's gonna go in Steric. I'm just gonna tell you that right now. However, I will also say that it could feasibly go into Steve, Nancy, and Jonathan because of the Steve-Jonathan relationship as it exists. I do love it. I love when fanfic authors play with it and kind of deal with it because I think it is such a strong part of them as an OT3 and, like, kind of their development as people outside of the development or non-development that we see in the actual show. And so I think that that is very good, but man, Styles and Derek literally start off as enemies. I mean, I guess Steve and Jonathan do too, but Steric, man. Ooh, it's like the whole basis of their relationship as a whole. Oh, it's so good. Established relationship. So the times that it warms my heart the most are Stucky and McKirk. I would like to say, however, that I think it makes me happiest in McKirk because even though I love the essentially college AU that is, like, writing fic of McKirk at Starfleet Academy, they're roommates. They're not roommates. They always are seeing each other. God, oh my god, that shit's so good. I didn't even think about that. I guess Starfleet is basically college AU stuff, so that's good too. But it makes me really happy when I read a fanfic and I can think of a couple of my favorites off the top of my head from AO3 that start off with Kirk and McCoy already in a relationship and also already doing their 5-year mission, or having finished the first leg of their 5-year mission and they're, like, on leave and they're in a relationship and it's a whole thing. It truly, truly warms my heart. However, also, Stucky is very good, and I love when I start a Stucky fanfic and they're already together. But also, the angst of them getting together is a big part of what makes Stucky so good. But damn, are they good together, so, you know, do whatever. Fairy Tale AU. I don't mind this. I don't love this. I'm gonna say no to this in general. Not because I don't like it, because I don't mind Fairy Tale AU fanfics. I would say arguably Styles and Derek is probably, if I was going to pick one of these couples to kind of fit into Fairy Tale AU, the one that would, because of the kind of werewolf fantastical speculative thing going on. Actually, no, I am gonna say that because I've read a couple of Prince AUs set in the Teen Wolf universe and it's good, so fuck it, I'm stupid. Okay, fake relationship. Damn, I feel bad for Steve, Nancy, and Jonathan because I do love Steve, Nancy, and Jonathan, but damn is it also very specific. Just know that I love them and I go back to them all the time. So, fake relationship. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. It's gotta be the boys. I mean, they're all boys. It's gotta be Styles and Derek. Like, I have read more fake relationship. God, I did not expect this to happen, but also I don't know why I didn't expect this to happen, where, like, these were all going into Steric, and I don't know why I didn't think this was going to happen. Anyway, I have read a lot of really good fake relationship AUs of Steric, and again, their dynamic is so good because it's, like, energetic and happy and grump. It's good. It makes things way more fun when written well. Fix it, fic. So, this is Stucky. Like, this is just straight up Stucky. Because whether you're talking about fix it fic, like fixing canon, or fix it fic, like fixing broken canon that doesn't work, or fix it like canon hurts, Stucky does it so good. Fluff, which I love. Which couple do I love it the most from? However, this might be the hardest one. I guess I like it the most. I don't fucking know. McCoy and Kirk, maybe? Which I think probably goes with the, like, established relationship. And Steric and McKirk have very similar vibes, which is why they work so well, which is the, like, energetic, happy person and the grump man who secretly cares. And so, like, the fluff in McKirk is very good because you get either actual fluff where you're like, oh, so sweet, or you get grump fluff, and that is extremely good. Friends to lovers. Oh man. God. Okay. Okay, so here's the thing. Stucky is God tier. I will say that. However, I like AUs where they aren't friends and then they still get together. But Kirk and McCoy is just like, that's friends to lovers, my dude. And that's the feelings. Because it's never, I have read AUs where they aren't friends or like it's like different, like whatever. But the ones that I like the most are the ones where they have gone from friends to lovers. Like, that's the majority of the fanfic that I really love, whether it's in Mirrorverse or not. I mean, it's usually not Mirrorverse. It's usually only in Mirrorverse if, God, if McCoy from the Prime universe goes to Mirrorverse. It's fine. Okay, Genfic. God. You know what? I don't fucking like Genfic. That's not true. I do like Genfic. I just like, I'm very tuned in to all four of these couples that while I have read Genfic probably in all of the universes, I don't need it. It's fine. Go away. Hurt comfort. I'm gonna give it to my babies because a big reason why I love this OT3, especially if you're talking like end of season 1. Because, like, obviously, they did some shit in seasons 2 and 3. I got feelings. Anyway, end of season 1, beginning of season 2, like, that kind of period of time in Stranger Things is extremely informative to me as a person who likes this OT3. Because you have the teens fighting the monster in the house. And, like, there have been many a good teens go and fight the monsters, hurt, comfort, fix that I have loved from the Stranger Things fan community. So I'm gonna give it to them. I like this in all of these. All of them, it's good. But I'm gonna give it to Steve, Nancy, and Jonathan because sweet babies, I love them. Historical AU. So, I mean, I guess I'm gonna give it to... No, I'm just gonna say no. I was gonna say I would give it to Stucky because there's sort of an inherent historicalism set in, but like that's also sort of canon. Next up is high school AU. So, God, here's the problem with the high school AU is that 2 of these pairings sort of take place in high school-ish. I don't like this in any of them. I'm not a huge high school AU person. I'm more of a college AU person. That's not weird, but that's all. Huddle for warmth. Checks out, makes sense, one of them's human. Thank you. Humor. Oh God. I mean, I guess there are 2. I'm just gonna say that the teenagers / 20-somethings who were writing Steric fanfic when I was reading Steric fanfic when Teen Wolf was on the air, some of the funniest motherfuckers on the planet. Love them. And it's very important because I think of all of these characters, Styles is the funniest person in all of these couples. While he's not always hilarious on the show, Dylan O'Brien is a very funny person as well. And so, like, being able to capture that humor is always delightful and always wonderful. And I think kind of important to writing Styles well. In Vino Veritas, which I believe is Drunken Confessions, which I think I'm gonna give to Stucky, specifically in historical, like set in the 30s time period stuff, because I read a couple that have ripped my fucking heart out. The next one is First Kiss. Jesus fucking Christ. I mean, First Kiss is good in almost every context. I love it all of the time. I think I have liked it the most, though, in Kirk McCoy, because I will say, of the friends to lovers thing, it's also particularly good in Stucky stuff, but I think first time sex stuff is the best in Stucky stuff. But First Kiss specifically is so good in Kirk and McCoy because it usually happens in Friends to Lovers fics, which are some of my favorites, as I've said. The next one is Magic AU, which I'm just not into. Here's the thing I've realized as a person is that I don't mind fantasy as a whole, but I tend not to love it. Like, I'll read it and I'll enjoy it, but I tend not to be a person who is outwardly seeking, specifically in fanfiction, fantasy AUs, which I think is probably why I don't like really fairy tale AUs that much, except for ones that don't involve magic and like that kind of thing. Fantasy is fine, and I like reading fantasy fiction and I love watching fantasy, but I just don't want to read it in fanfiction if it's not already part of the universe that the fanfiction is set in, which seems very strange because I'm down for most things, but that's just one of the things I'm not into. Miscommunication is interesting because I love and hate it all at once in fiction and fanfiction. In fiction, it irritates me more than it does in fanfiction because that's just stupid. But for some reason, it doesn't annoy me as much in fanfiction. It can still annoy me. It really depends on how it's written. I would say that miscommunication is probably, I don't even know, maybe Stucky? Just because, like, the angst factor, you know? They have so many things that they can miscommunicate about, so, you know, there's that. Missing scenes. Okay, so I'm going to take this as missing scenes since none of these couples are canon. Missing scenes as a canon divergence. And so I would say Steve, Nancy, and Jonathan, which is a wild choice. And am I giving it to them because I haven't given them almost anything? Kind of. However, I can think of so many extremely good fanfics that are set after season 1, like completely within canon after season 1, before season 2 of Stranger Things came out, that just like make a lot of sense to me as like, here is how these 3 characters would feasibly, at the very least, become friends after this shared experience. And so those are very near and dear to my heart. Obviously, they end up dating, but even if you're just thinking about like, this would make sense as to why they would be friends in season 2, which then of course they weren't, and I was very confused by. This is the pairing that needs missing scenes, my friends. All right, mutual pining is tight in everything. It's one of my favorite things, but I would say it's the best in Stucky. I will take no questions at this time. It's just too good. Sex pollen, oh god, okay. So here's the thing. I hate sex pollen. It's one of my least favorite, like, contrivance for trying to get people to fuck in fiction and fan fiction. I really don't like it, but I would say that if I were, I'm gonna put it in no thanks because I don't really want to read it, but I would say that if I were going to read it in any fandom, I would say either Star Trek, because they already kind of have like a fuck or die vibe thing going on for certain characters doing certain things, it makes sense, etc. Or Styles and Derek, because the Teen Wolf universe also kind of has sort of magic-y shit going on, and I mean, it would make sense. And I'm pretty sure I have read sex pollen fics in Steric before, but it's just not something I go for. Next, porn without plot. Again, this is good in everything. I mean, it's the best in Stucky, maybe, ever. I'm gonna throw Royalty AU into Steric because I put Fairytale AU there because I have read Royalty AU fanfics, so they are together in my brain. Slow burn. Jesus Christ. God. I mean, Stucky slow burn is very good, but I will say that Kirk and McCoy slow burn is good for the same reason that Friends to Lovers in McKirk is good and First Kiss is good. Like, all of these three things combine together to create some of the best fanfic ever. No one will agree with me. It's just me hanging out over here. I mean, obviously it's not just me because like lots of people have written McKirk and I love them from the very bottom of my heart. Soulmate AU. Stucky. I love Soulmate AU. This is one of my favorite tropes ever. Ever, ever, ever. I will always read a Soulmate AU. If it's bad, fine, but I will read it. I especially love Soulmate AUs when they have taken other soulmate type concepts. Like, in particular, one of my favorite general concepts is from the film Timer, which is a near future pseudo sci-fi where it's basically just a rom-com or a rom-drom that has like a sci-fi element where a company invented a timer that gets implanted into your skin, and once it gets implanted, if your soulmate also gets one implanted, then there will be a countdown clock to when you guys will meet, or like to the day that you guys will meet, and when you lock eyes, you'll know who it is. And man, that AU is very good. And lots of people have incorporated that idea, as well as like soul marks or like words from your soulmate on you. This is not Stucky, but I can think very specifically of like 2 or 3 really fucking good McKirk ones that I have reread recently that just hurt. Ooh, they hurt. Especially when you have angst with a soulmate AU like that, where if you have like words or like marks or something, especially words, that it's like, oh, it's the first words that your soulmate says to you, or that kind of thing, where they will be in relationships with other people who have said those things to them first, thinking that that person is their soulmate, and then you get like angst of like they're not, and then like oh my god, I'm just thinking of this one very specific. You know what? Fuck this. I love Stucky, but that's, oh my god, that McKirk fanfic really fucks me up. It's so good. They think that other people are their soulmates, and then they realize that they're not, and their relationships fall apart, and then when they meet each other and they say the things, they're both really apprehensive and like guarded about it, and it's just really fucking good. Okay, thanks. Time loop. I'm not that into this. Like, I like the concept of it, but I don't know that I've ever read any fanfic that is particularly ingrained in this as like its trope. So I'd be interested to read it, and I'm sure I would like it in almost all, if not all, of these things. But yeah, there's that. The next one is Love Triangle, which I'm going to throw in Steve, Nancy, and Jonathan because A, they are a triangle, and B, because when I am reading fanfic of any of the other 3 of these pairings, I don't ever want another person involved in it. I want the pining and the hurt and the relationship stuff to come from the 2 people, but I don't mind love triangles if they're done well. So there's that. So Steve, Nancy, and Jonathan, they get it. Unhappy ending. I don't want it. It hurts me. I don't need it. I don't want it. I mean, in actuality, I would say Stucky, but like, I don't like want it. Unrequited love. Oh god. Okay. I mean, I guess Stucky, because the Steve Peggy thing is very good, and I love that couple a whole hell of a lot. And so give me Bucky being unrequited and sad about Steve and Peggy, and like, I will give you my heart. I would also say that the only other place I would throw love triangle in would be Steve and Bucky because of Peggy, and I've read a couple of OT3 fics, like threesome fics with those 3, and it's good. And that's all the tropes. So I don't know if this was entertaining, or I was gonna say helpful, but like, why would it be helpful? But yeah, that's that. I wanted to talk specifically about fan fiction, and these tropes as they relate to fan fiction. So I still actively read fan fiction. So like literally hit me up. I am in the midst of reading a couple of different fandoms that aren't any of these 4, but these are the 4 fandoms that I always come back to, and these are the couples that I always come back to within those fandoms. So there's that. I literally only have Kirk and McCoy stuff bookmarked on my AO3, and sometimes I get a wild hair up my ass and I just read all of the bookmarked fics I have for Mick Kirk, and I just get all up in my Star Trek feelings again. So there's that, I guess.